You know that feeling of being completely and utterly overwhelmed? It feels like such a modern problem, right? Like it's unique to our busy lives. But what if I told you the most powerful solution isn't some new app, but a framework that's been road tested for over 2,400 years? I mean, really think about it. It's not the kind of tired sleep can fix. It's a soul-deep exhaustion. Your mind just feels heavy, a bit frayed around the edges. It's that feeling of shinhanlei, your heart is tired, where things just feel like a little too much. Now, what if there was a way to actually tackle that feeling head-on? And I'm not talking about some vague, abstract philosophy. I mean a practical, step-by-step tool, a guide for your mind that can help you figure out what's going on and what to do about it. Think of it like a visit to the doctor, but for your mind. It's a 4-step framework drawn from what are known as the Four Noble Truths. First, the doctor listens to you and confirms your symptoms. That's the diagnosis. Second, they run some tests to find the root cause. Third, they give you the good news, the prognosis, that there's a way forward. And finally, they write you a prescription, the action plan. All right, so let's walk through it. Step 1 is the diagnosis. And this is all about just looking at the symptoms square in the face and saying, okay, this is real. This is what I'm feeling. The first truth here is simply this. Life has moments of stress, discomfort, and imperfection. Now, I know that sounds like a total downer, but stick with me, because it's actually the opposite. It's so liberating. It means that when you struggle, you're not failing. You're just human. And we've all been there, right? Getting sick, watching ourselves get older, losing someone we care about, not getting that job we wanted, or even that bittersweet feeling when a perfect, happy moment ends. These aren't personal failures. They are the threads that make up the shared human experience. You're not alone in any of this. Okay, so we've diagnosed the symptom, but a good doctor doesn't stop there, right? They want to find the root cause. So let's play detective and figure out where this fire is really coming from. And here's where it gets really interesting. This framework says the pain doesn't actually come from the bad things that happen to us. It comes from our reaction to them. It's our own internal craving, our desperate attachment to how we wish things were. That's the real source of the problem. I love this phrase. It's like a doctor pointing right at the X-ray of your mind and saying, see that? Right there. The world isn't the problem. The inflammation is coming from your attachment model. That's the aha moment. Let's use a story. Think about a really painful breakup. A lot of the deep, gnawing pain isn't just about missing that person, is it? It's about our fierce attachment to the idea that the relationship was supposed to last forever. The real suffering happens in that gap between the reality we have and the story we desperately wanted. So we know the problem, we've found the root cause, and yeah, that can feel a little heavy. But this next step is the most important part of the entire diagnosis. It's the good news. It's the hope. And the good news is this. This condition is treatable. We can actually end the cycle of stress. There's a state of peace called Nirvana, which, literally just means to extinguish, like blowing out a candle. It's about putting out that fire of unhealthy attachment. And it's not some far-off mystical heaven. It's an achievable state of mind. And let's be super clear here, this is not about becoming a robot or having no emotions. Not at all. It's about building resilience. It's about being able to stand in the middle of a storm, feel the wind and the rain, and still have a sense of inner stability and calm because you know you're okay. So if a cure exists, then what's the prescription? What do we actually do? This is the final step, the most practical part of the whole framework, your action plan. The prescription is something called the Eightfold Path. Now, don't let that name scare you. It's not as complicated as it sounds. Just think of it as a mental first aid kit. It's a set of 8 practical, common sense adjustments you can make to your everyday life. And they're not just random rules. They're a complete training program for your mind. It starts with wisdom, things like having the right view, which is really just understanding this whole framework we're talking about. Then you move to ethical conduct, simple stuff like right speech, which means cutting out harmful gossip, or right action. And finally, you tie it all together with mental discipline, like right mindfulness, just learning to watch your thoughts come and go without judging them. Each one is a tool. So let's just pull this all together. What we have here isn't some dusty, ancient philosophy that belongs in a museum. It is an incredibly powerful, totally universal toolkit that feels like it was custom built for the crazy challenges we're all facing today. And let's just bust two huge myths right now. 1, this is not pessimistic. Is a doctor pessimistic for diagnosing an illness? No, they're realistic and they give you a path to get better. That's incredibly optimistic. And 2, you absolutely do not need to be a Buddhist to use this. It's a psychological owner's manual for the human mind, available to anyone. So if you remember just one thing, let it be this simple analogy. Think of your mental pain, your stress, your suffering as a fire. Step 1, you just have to admit the room is on fire. That's the diagnosis. Step 2, you find out what's feeding it. Our attachments. That's the root cause. Step 3, you realize with total certainty that this fire can be put out. That's the hope. And finally, step 4, you grab the right fire extinguisher, the Eightfold Path, and you start putting it out. That's your action plan. I think this quote just captures it all so perfectly. This framework doesn't promise you a life without storms. Life will always have rain. What it does is it hands you the hammer and nails and teaches you how to fix your own roof so that when the rain comes, you're ready. So I'll leave you with a question to really bring this home. What is one fire, one stress, one attachment in your life right now that maybe, just maybe, you could start looking at a little differently after this?